Assalamu alaikum, my brothers, sisters, and the youth. Ali, I think you can come and sit next to me so that I don't feel too lonely. So before I start formally, may I know how many of you are here who are first-time buyers? Okay. And people who've already got a property, how many are here who have already got a property and would be interested in knowing about investment in properties? That's fine. Thank you very much. So this gives us an idea as to how much time to spend on our first segment, which is mainly for the first-time buyers. And then we'll have a short break, and then we'll go to our second segment. I'll generally be talking on first-time property buyers as to what's involved in property buying. And Ali is a mortgage advisor, so he'll be specifically talking about mortgages and other topics related to it. And then we'll have a question and answer sessions on the first segment, i.e. property buying for the first-time buyers. Short break after that, and then we'll go to the second segment where we will speak on buy-to-let HMOs, auction properties, and so on and so forth. So the agenda for the first-time buyers is the fundamentals, starting the journey, budget for other costs related with the property buying, discounts for first-time buyers, survey of the property, stamp duty, buying process, and final steps. Now, fundamentals. These are very, very important. To start with, savings for the deposit is very important. And of course, without a deposit, it would be very, very difficult, almost impossible to buy a property, because it's not only, even if you get 100% mortgage, it's not only the property cost, but there are so many other associated costs which go along with the buying of the property that you really need a deposit. And generally speaking, the higher the deposit, the better it is, and I'll explain why. Second, good credit reference, which is in fundamentals. Good credit reference. Now, nowadays, anything you do, any loan you apply for, any hire purchase, or any financial commitment you make, the lender will definitely will go to the credit reference agency and inquire about your credit history, correct? So that is of immense importance, and I cannot overemphasize this to the first-time buyers, how important it is, because if you have a bad credit reference agency, bad credit reference, you will not be able to buy the property, and even if you do, the interest rates charged will be very, very high. So that is a must, a good credit reference agency. What does that mean, that to have a good credit reference? That means basically that if you have a loan already, say for example, if you are a hire purchase loan or a car loan, and you're paying monthly installments, those must be paid on time. Your financial commitments must be completed on time, and you should not fall in arrears. And even with the bank, they will go to credit reference agencies and check your credit record. Credit reference agencies give you a score. The better the credit reference agency, the more score you have. Then comes the regular income, which again is very important. Lenders will always see that you have got a regular income and you're not struggling or you're not changing job to job, because without a regular income, you will find it hard to get a mortgage. Minimum borrowing on credit cards and personal loans. Now, buying a property is one of the biggest investment for most of us in our lifetime. And once the house is bought, of course your commitments will increase. You'll have a regular mortgage repayment every month. And whilst you're buying the house, as I go along, you will see that there are so many other costs involved that you really need to keep your borrowings on credit cards and personal loans to the minimum possible, because whereas if you are renting or if you're living with your parents, then you don't have substantial commitments and you can afford to spend money here and there and be a little bit sort of casual. So the lender will always look as to what commitments you have got, how much money have you borrowed on credit cards, and what other loans have you got, and have you been making repayments on time. So that is again a very important aspect of it. And by the time you come to buying the property, you have to make sure that your commitments regarding credit cards and are all paid and are kept to a minimum possible. Staying within your monthly budget and making a saving every month. Again, monthly budget is very important, and once you've made your monthly budget, you stay within your budget and save some money. Now, this is a stage where you are still preparing to buy your property. So once the monthly budget is prepared, say for example, you're earning £2,000 and your total spending should be, I don't know, 1,000, 1,200, 1,500. It will all depend on the circumstances. If you're totally dependent on your parents, and obviously if they are wealthy enough to subsidize you and do not ask you to contribute anything, that's the stage when you can save substantial amount of money and build up your deposit for the house. This will also give you a habit of saving money, because habits are very important. If you get into the wrong habit, like if you are earning £2,000 and if you earn the whole lot of £2,000, that is not good, because otherwise you will never save for the house which you want to buy. Now, the actual starting of the journey to buy the house. Firstly, you have to decide which area you want to buy in. Once you have decided that, I want to buy a house, you can't keep looking for a property in all different areas, otherwise you'll be sort of wasting your time. You could spend a little bit of time just to get the feel of it as to what the prices are. But then once you have done that, you really need to concentrate as to where you want to buy the property. Then you have to decide whether you want to buy a house or a flat. A house is generally a freehold, and a flat is generally leasehold. But in a leasehold flat, you have to pay the service charges and ground rent. Service charges being paid to the management company for looking after the communal area. So it depends upon your own individual preference whether you want to buy a house or a flat. Again, at this stage, you have to decide the price range of the property, deposit available, and mortgage limit. The price range will obviously depend on how much deposit you have built up for the property, how much mortgage you can borrow, and those two added together will give you an idea as to how much total money you have got. Then you can decide as to what price range you want to buy the property. If you are looking for a property worth £200,000, say for example, you don't spend a lot of time and looking at a property of say £500,000 or £750,000 because you won't be able to buy it. You know, it's beyond your limit. So look for a range for a property within your range. Then there are other costs like stamp duty to start with, one of the bigger costs in buying the property. But there is a sort of a limit whereby the stamp duty is exempt. We'll come to that in a second. And consider the mortgage requirements. Of course, the mortgager, the person, the lender who's giving you a mortgage, they'll have their requirements as well, so you'll have to consider that. Consider insurance cover to protect the mortgage. Another important point here is to ensure that the mortgage which you've taken is protected. For example, if you if you are a young couple, if you are married, and you take up a mortgage of say £150,000, and God forbid if you fall ill or something happens to you, then how will that mortgage be covered? So you have to make sure that the insurance cover is in place and proper arrangements are done just in case something happens to you, so you know your family is not stranded and your mortgage is paid off. Now, with buying of the property, I don't know, the first-time buyers, I think this is especially useful, that a lot of other associated costs goes with the buying of property. It's not just like buying say for example, a car or something else, you know, furniture in the house or whatever. You just buy it and no other costs are associated with it. Even with a car, obviously, you have to maintain it all the time. But with property, as you can see, you have to pay stamp duty. If you go above the threshold, then there are legal fees to be paid to the conveyancer, i.e. the solicitor. When you make a mortgage application, you need to pay a mortgage application fee, then arrangement fee and valuation fee. The mortgagor or the lender will ask for an arrangement fee as well, and a valuation fee to value the property, because their purpose is to send a valuer and to make sure that the property in the market is a reasonable security for the money which they are lending, because unless they get a security of the property and property is in a reasonably good condition and it's valued at a certain price, they will not lend you. So they will send an independent valuer to value the property. Once they have done that, then the other cost is surveyor's fee, which is, in my opinion, the most important thing in the whole process. because you might get stuck with a property which has problems. For that, it's important to get the property surveyed. The surveyor will give you a full report, the type of report which will come to, and you can then, you will be able to see as to whether there are any defects in the property, whether the property is damaged. This you cannot see from a naked eye, so it's important. Also, most important for a surveyor is to make sure that no structural defects. God forbid if you get involved with a property which has a structural defects, then to start with, you won't get a mortgage on that, and even if you get it, it will be at a very high rate. So surveying is very, very important. Financial advisor and consultant's fee, moving costs. Once you bought the property, depending on where you are living, you'll have to move from A to B, living with your parents, or you're in a rented property. That will cost you money as well. Nothing is cheap nowadays, as you people know. Refurbishment and renovation costs, if any. The property might not be in a perfect condition, or it might not be in a state which you may like, so you will have to spend money on it. Depends on the property you buy. And then the furnishing costs. So you can see that there's a long list of expenses which are involved, and it's not only the cost of the property. So you have to budget for all these costs. Just a very wild example, if the property costs, say, £200,000, there won't be any stamp duty on it because it's not beyond the threshold, but all these costs might come to about, I don't know, £15,000, £10,000, or whatever, depending on your own choice, which is a lot of money. So you have to start planning right from the beginning and start budgeting for all the costs. Next is research into discounts for first-time buyers. Nowadays, a lot of discounts are available, so you need to do a thorough research as to what discounts are available. There's a first home scheme which was introduced only a few years ago, and it's a very good scheme by which you can, I think you can get a discount of between 30 to 50%, but it's only available on new built homes. So you will have to contact the developers or people involved with new homes and find out as to how much discount is available for yourself. They will also have their own discounts. They'll be giving incentives just to obviously make sure that their properties are sold, but obviously it's an advantage. So it's a matter of personal preference whether you would want to go for a new house, a new built house, or a traditional house via solicitor, via estate agent. But if you can get such a big discount like 30 to 50%, and if you don't have any specific preferences, then I think it's worth going for it and making a thorough research. Help to Buy ISA is again a government scheme by which you put money in individual savings account and you can utilize it towards your first house. And there are other discounts available, so you have to make your own research. So again, now we come to the survey of the property. There are various types of surveys. There's a building survey level 1, home buyers report level 2 with valuation. They'll give you valuation as well. And home buyers report level without valuation, condition report, and RICS valuation survey. Earlier on, I pointed out that the lender will do its own valuation. but the lender is doing a valuation for their own purposes, i.e. to make sure that the money is secured. Can anybody tell me why is that not enough? In the sense that why do you need an additional survey, and you cannot rely only on the valuation done by the lender? Anybody? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So when you instruct a survey to do the survey of the property, as I said earlier, they are professional people, and they'll make sure that each and everything is okay, and if it's not okay, they will highlight it in the report. For example, roof, chimney, whether there is any dampness or not. And the biggest of all is the condition of the property, the ground level, that it has structurally, it has a sound foundation. Because structurally, if there are problems, then of course you don't want to go for that property because you can have problems later on. So only a surveyor is qualified to give you a qualified report, and because most of the surveyors are members of Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, they are dependable. Again, you'll be spending money on this. The surveyor will quote you. You'll have to decide as to which survey you want. They won't release their report till the time you have paid them. Stamp duty, up to 31st of the stamp duty laws are being changed. So up to 31st of the March 2025, the cost of the property up to £625,000 or less. First £425,000, there is no stamp duty, and then 5% of the difference between 625 and 425. Anything above £625,000 will not qualify for stamp duty, correct? This is up to March next year. The laws change after March next year, which then it would be cost of the property up to £500,000, £300,000 is exempt, and then there's stamp duty between £300,000 to £500,000. This all obviously applies to first-time buyers purchasing a residential property. So you should keep this in mind. Also, whilst I'm talking, if you have any questions, you can jot it down, and when the question and answer session come in, you can fire away the questions. After I have done my bit, Ali will be speaking, and then we'll take the question and answers. Now, the buying process. How does the buying process start? Obviously, for people who have got properties, they've gone through this experience, so obviously they might feel bored or whatever, but I've taken effort to state whatever things are involved from A to Z, so that you can go step by step and understand the whole process of buying the property. Get a mortgage approved in principle. Yeah, here it is. Get a mortgage approved in principle, which means that once you have your deposit selected, once you have your house, you've chosen a house where to buy, even without that, there are companies which will give you an approval in principle which you will need. Once you show them that you've got deposit available, you've got a regular income, your credit reference is good, so on and so forth. Register with the estate agent. So the first thing you do, practically now, when you go outside in the field to buy property, is register with the estate agents. there are two main agents. I haven't researched it very recently, but up till about a few years ago, I'm sure still is the case, Rightmove and Zoopla. If you go online into Rightmove and Zoopla, both are independent online agencies, and there you can put in the area where you want to buy the house, the range of the price where you want to buy the house, and then you'll see a number of houses available. So you can go through those and then see which ones you like depending on your requirements, how big a house you want, what other facilities you want in the house. Once you've done that, and once you like the house, that you like this house, you ring the state agent and start making viewing appointments. At this stage, you should make a list of your priorities. Again, this is a matter of preference. You know, some people would like a house near the mosque, or others would like near their workplace. Others would like near shopping facilities are good, and others would like if they have got children, as to the schools, there are good schools nearby. So it's all a matter of preference, and when you go through those properties, you can then see how far they are from the mosque, from the workplace, from the school, so on and so forth, and start making an appointment. And estate agents, of course, will ask you as to what sort of deposit you have available. Have you got a mortgage agreed in principle, and so on and so forth. So you have to be ready for all this by the time you approach the estate agent. Otherwise, you know, you won't be doing things in a chronological order. I hope I'm not going too fast. If I am, please do tell me, and I'll slow down. So once you've started viewing the house, I think we have missed one. Yeah. If you like a house, then you arrange a second viewing. Once the second viewing is done and you still like the house and you feel like making an offer, you wait for 1 or 2 days just to cool down. Because obviously this is your first experience to buy a house. You'll be excited. You would want to make the offer as soon as possible and get the house as soon as possible. But it's good to be patient, number one, and it's good to take your time, because houses will not go away. If that house is gone, there are plenty of other houses which will come on the market, which may be on the market. Patience is very important, and you have to be convinced that this is the house you like, and then you make an offer for that house. If your offer is accepted, the estate agent will then issue a memorandum of purchases and sales, including the solicitor's details, so ensure you have your solicitors in place. Whilst you are doing all these things, the surveying and viewing the houses and sorting out your mortgage, you have to sort out which solicitors you use. Solicitors are not cheap nowadays, they're expensive, but make sure that you get a good solicitor, because he'll be doing all your conveyancing work, and but do hunt around and ensure that you don't pay astronomical fees to the solicitor. But again, don't wait to get the cheapest solicitor, because the cheapest are not the best. Stamp duty we have discussed, survey we have discussed, sorry. Buying process. Yeah, so we were on Zoopla and Rightmove, the online property agents. We discussed this. Now the final steps in this thing. By this time, you should have a fair idea as to which area or areas you want to buy, what is your budget, how much deposit you have got. All these things should be worked out. And how much mortgage you will need, how much mortgage you will get. Not necessarily that if you have applied for a big mortgage like 90%, you will get that. It all depends upon, as I say, on your credit score, on your income, on your job level, whether you're a professional, a doctor, a surgeon, or a solicitor. And if you are self-employed, again, depends on how many years accounts you have got and whether you've got steady income. Once you have done that, then you will have to put in a formal mortgage application. At this stage, you have to apply, you have to pay a fee as well, and you will obviously you would have decided whether you want to go for a fixed interest rates or variable interest rates. My colleague here, Ali, will go through different types of interest rates in a few minutes. Also, you should consider affordability. Whilst buying a house, you have to mainly consider what your monthly repayments of the mortgage will be, capital and interest, because you can't take only an interest mortgage. You have to take, generally speaking, a mortgage which comprises repayment of capital together with the interest for a term, meaning for 20 years or 25 years, and by that time your mortgage will be repaid. And affordability in the sense that your biggest payment once you start living independently in your house would be your mortgage payment. Up to now, if you were living with your parents or you were renting a house, especially if you were living with your parents, you wouldn't have had experience of paying the utility bills and all the other expenses. Once you bought the house, the expenses all of a sudden will shoot up considerably. So you have to budget for all this. Then it goes to the solicitors. The solicitors, they start conveyancing process. To start with, the solicitors will ask you for a search fee up front, which is a fee for the local searches which the solicitor will be doing, like environmental search and flooding search. There are so many searches, and the solicitors will keep you informed. They will also take some money on account from you as they go along with their work, and they will then finally put their bill in with the completion statements. So while this process is going on, now the solicitor is doing the conveyancing work for you. You're just waiting to hear from the solicitor. So the solicitor will keep you informed throughout the process as to how they are doing and if they need anything from you, till you come to the exchange of contracts. Here the important thing to understand is that nothing is final till the time the contracts are exchanged. Mind the words exchanged. Prior to this, the solicitor will either call you into your office or send you a contract to sign. You sign the contract and send it back to him. Even at this stage, you are not legally bound to buy the house, because the contracts have to be exchanged between the two solicitors, the buyer's solicitors and the seller's solicitors. Unless they exchange the contract, there is no binding contract on you, and you can always pull out of the thing. But why I've been explaining this step by step, that because by this time you've spent a lot of money on various things I don't want to repeat, which I've gone through. So you are almost fully committed, but not 100%. Once you've done this, the solicitors will always ask you, generally speaking, 10% of the money to pay on exchange of contracts, and will fix up a completion date as well. Completion date is the final date when your monies, if you are a buyer, they are with the solicitor sends it to the seller's solicitors. And on that day, you have completed the purchase of your house, and you move on that day to your property. But this has to be decided at the time of exchange. You can't leave the completion date blank and exchange contracts. You can't do it. In fact, you can exchange and complete at the same time if you are pushed. Sometimes solicitors do that. If they haven't been able to exchange and a lot of time has been wasted, they would do the whole process together, i.e. the exchange of the contracts and completion. So I hope I've been able to explain step by step the process of buying the house in very simple terms. Now I'll hand over to Ali, who will go through the mortgage part of it and other associated things.
Thank you, Musa. Assalamu alaikum everyone. Firstly, thank you, Musa, and the Economic Committee to inviting me here today to speak about mortgages pieces. So, my name is Abideen Madani. I'm a mortgage advisor for the last 3.5 to 4 years. I've been predominantly based in London, and today, obviously, as Michelle mentioned, I'll be giving you lots of tips and advice on how to obtain a mortgage as a first-time buyer. So before I start, I work in the regulated field, so I have to make sure I tell you the disclaimer here. None of this, or whatever I say, is recommended advice. This is purely for educational purposes as well. So please, if you do have questions, happy to answer them as well, but don't take this as my recommended advice. Go speak to mortgage advisor as well.
Can I just interrupt for a second? That goes for me as well. This is not a specific recommended advice, you know. Go.
Right, so when you're buying a property, as I mentioned, there's loads of pain. Right? As a first-time buyer, you're new to this place, you're wondering how to go through it as well. And there's so much out there, there's so much information out there, there's so many things out there to consider. It can be time-consuming, it can be a headache, there's a lot of research to do, and at the end of the day, you feel really stressed out as well. But what my job is to make that pain go away, make the process very easy for you and simple for you as well. So my role in this process is to help you, give you the advice, answer all the questions, be there every step of the way from start, from preparation, all the way up to exchange and completion as well, to make sure that you get the right mortgage, the right service, and the right advice as well. So Michelle went through the journey, as you can see there, it's relatively the same. So the first thing I want to go through for everybody is there are 4 things every mortgage application needs in order to get the best chance of success as well. The first one is the property itself. Is the property suitable? Does it meet the lender's needs? Is it habitable? Does it have the right criteria for the lender? The second is yourselves, the applicants. You are the ones who are going to step into that mortgage. You have to be considered, and in that regulated environment, it really means that the lender needs to take the right precautions, the right due diligence, the right steps. So my role is to make sure that you, as people, are set up for success as well. The third reason is your purpose. So every mortgage you need to have a purpose. In this case, the first-time buyer, your purpose is to get on the property ladder. In other circumstances, you also have a purpose, whether that's to raise money against the property, whether you're buying an investment property, whether you're remortgaging. You need to have a purpose and a reason and justification behind why you're doing it. And the final thing is the product. At the end of the day, there's so many lenders out there, there are over 50 lenders in the market. All of them have different products and different arrangements that could benefit you. And we'll go through some of those today in a little bit more detail. So what is the actual process of going from the start to actually getting the decision in principle? Because as Michelle said, you need to go through this in a chronological order, and to get a decision in principle is the first step for you to then go out and start looking for properties as well. So in this stage, my aim is to give you the recommendation of which lender, which product, which loan will be suitable for you based on your needs. And there are 4 stages for how we do this. The first is the fact find, then then I'll go away and do my research once I've got all your details and information. I then come back to you and I present a recommendation based on everything we've discussed. And then finally, we go ahead and we implement that, and we start that journey off. So during the fact find stage, I need to know everything, right? So the earlier you tell me everything that you have, the easier it is for me to go out there and find the right lender for you as well. So some of the things we discuss are stuff like your income, your outgoings, your status, how much deposit you have, whether that's a cash deposit from your savings, whether you're getting a gifted deposit from a family member, whether there's an incentive behind it, what is that deposit, what's the makeup of it. And then we're looking at your finances. We're looking at how you manage your finances, your credit report, how important, Musa mentioned, your credit score is basically your financial footprint. At the end of the day, the lenders is going to use that to base their decision on who you are, how you are committed, and whether you will be able to repay them back. We also look at the budget, so how much you're looking to spend per month on the mortgage, how does interest rates play a part, so if the interest rate increases, if it decreases, how does that impact your monthly budget? Would you be looking to repay early at some point or make overpayments? How long you want that mortgage to be? And then protection in terms of protecting that mortgage, your attitude to risk. So at the end of the day, you have a risk tolerance. You can be very adverse in terms of risk, you can be balanced, or you can be adventurous because you feel like I can do this. And finally, then we need to present your evidences. It's all good talking about it, but paper in black and white, we need to see it so then it can make our lives easy, but also the lenders we need to see it. So anything I spot before the lender spots it will help, because we don't go through that process with the lender. They spot it, they reject it, and then they put a mark on your credit. So in that whole process, once we've done the fact find and we've got, we've had the conversations, what are the documents? What are the things that I will be asking you to provide to me so that I can put a case for you together? Well, income is obviously going to be the key thing here, right? So a lot of the affordability, we'll cover that in a little while, is based on the income. So if you're employed, if you're self-employed, we'll be looking at your pay slips, your tax calculations, your tax year overviews, your annual self-assessments, your last 3 months of your bank statements, your personal and your business. Because essentially what the lender is looking for, see, are you somebody who goes on a spending spree? Are you doing particular things? Obviously, we don't in this community, but a lot of people out there will be spending money on gambling, they'll be spending money buying and drinking and stuff like that, and the lender will see. But if you're shopping, if you're spending too much on revolving credit and stuff like that, then again, the lender will see that in the bank statements as well. Your full credit report. So there are 3 reference agencies out there that all lenders can choose to use as well. And your credit report, you can get obtained for free. So there's no reason why anybody can go now, see their credit report, see what their credit and financial footprint looks like as well. And we'll also need that, because that will show all your committed credit. So your credit cards, your unsecured loans, your hire purchases, anything that you basically committed to spend and paying back monthly will be found in the credit report. Essentially, if you have had adverse credit and you've missed payments in the past, that will also be highlighted in the credit report as well. So usually on your credit file, you'll see that for 6 years after you've closed off that particular credit commitment. So if you close your credit card today in 2024, it will still be visible on your file to 2030 as well. And any missed payments, any defaults, any debt in arrears that you've paid, anything that you've done in terms of you've had to go to the courts, CCJs, they will all appear on your credit file. Proof of ID, your name, you say who you are, your proof of address of where you're currently living, and also the deposit. So usually lenders want to see that deposit built up in a certain period of time, and usually that's 3 months. But some lenders reserve the right to go all the way back up to 12 months if they feel like there's any anti-money laundering checks they want to do, and they want to make sure that the money is coming from the right places and legitimate sources as well. And then again, based on the circumstances and based on what we discussed, there may be other documents that I would want to see as well, just to make sure that we can provide those evidences to the lender when we go for the application. Okay, so once you've given me your documents and you've given me information, what is my role essentially? What do I do? So there are 2 things I'm looking at. Number 1 is suitability. So by suitability, I mean have I considered your needs? Have I justified the product based on what preferences you've got and chosen? But also, and more importantly, does it match up to the lender and what their criteria is? Every lender has certain list of criteria, and it encompasses everything that you can think of as well. So essentially what I'm trying to do is match you to the lender and make sure that your criteria or your circumstances meets the lender's criteria and vice versa. And the second thing I'm looking at is affordability. So does the loan amount that you are considering meet the lender's requirements based on your income, based on your expenses, and also giving you the best product available, and not just in terms of interest rates, in terms of overall true cost. So Mustafa spoke about all the lender fees that are there as well. The survey, the valuation fees, the arrangement fees, the booking fees. Encompassing all of that, it's not just about the lowest interest rate, it's about the lowest overall in terms of true cost. Am I giving you the best product that you're going to spend the least amount on paying that back over the years? Once I've come back with the most suitable option, I will then present that back to you. So I'll send you an illustration, we'll go through it in detail, and the illustration basically covers certain different points. So it will tell you the term, how long the mortgage is for, the initial products and the interest rate, how much are the one-off fees or any ongoing fees, the monthly mortgage payments you'll be making every month in terms of the interest rate. But we also, it's going to cover the whole term. So for example, if you have a 2-year fix, we won't just show you what you pay in the initial 2 years, it will show you what you pay in the overall 40-year term if you're doing a 40 fix. So in the first 2 years you may be paying 4.3% interest, but then after that, for the remaining 38 years, if the lender's rate is 6-7%, we'll show you what that figure is and we'll have that conversation so you understand exactly everything that you need to pay. If you're happy with that, this is the moment then I go and submit the decision principle with the lender. So at this point, when we submit the application, the lenders run a credit check. This is the first credit check that we want to do. And this will be, depending on the lender, there will be a soft decision principle and a soft check. What that basically means is that the lenders will look for your credit file, but they won't leave a footprint on your credit file. So if they do decline, no other lender can see it. And so that allows us to then look again and see if any other lenders, and we can find out why the lender has declined. There may be certain reasons that they see maybe you might not fit their risk appetite, maybe they're going to borrow or give you less, and it's not exactly the requirements you need, and we can go through that process again. But essentially, this is the first stage where we present it to the lender, and the lender gives us an initial decision in principle saying, yes, I give you X amount, and you go away and start looking for properties, or no, I couldn't give you that amount, and the reasons behind it why. So once you've done that, you've got the decision in principle, you've gone out and looked for your properties, and you found the dream house that you actually wanted to buy, then we'll do a full application submission. So you'll agree to me to say, yes, I'm happy to continue. I'll submit the full application on your behalf with all the evidences provided to the lender as they requested. The lender then goes through a process of underwriting. And the underwriting is essentially split into 2 parts. The first part is the valuation, which Mustafa talked about as well, where the lender will send an independent surveyor to the property, and the surveyor will basically be the eyes and ears of the lender, saying, yes, this property is suitable, it's habitable, the value or the agreed purchase price we're in agreement with, and we're happy that this will be a suitable security for you as the lender. The second thing is that the lender will have the underwriting team who will basically underwrite your case. So they will look at the application we submitted and the documents that we provided to them, and they will assess it on that basis. And A, they can ask for more documentation if they feel like there's other things that they want to check and ask, or B, they will wait for the valuation. If the valuation is successful, then they will provide you with a mortgage offer. Now that offer issue that the lenders provide, that is their commitment to you. So at that point, the lender is legally bound to you. As long as you haven't misrepresented yourself in the terms and conditions and in the application, they cannot pull out of that deal. But each offer has a deadline, and usually that's 6 months. So you have, within that 6 months, to get all the solicitor paperwork done, go for the exchange, get the completion done, and they will then give the funds to the solicitors during that time as well. If you don't complete within that 6 months, that application is null and void. We can either renew with the same lender, or we can start the process again with a different lender, depending on the circumstances. It's also worth noting that the decision in principle also has an expiry date as well, and that depends per lender. So it can either be 1 month, 2 months, or 3 months, and depending on which lender you go for. Now, the final thing here to consider is when we submit the full application to the lender, At that point, the interest rates and all the terms that we've talked about then become secure. So if I've given you a decision principle and the rate is 4.6, and you've gone out and looked for a property, but you've come back to me and said, yes, I'm happy to continue, the lender in that process can still change the rates as they do depending on market factors. So only when you've submitted the full application do you secure the rate. But that doesn't mean that if the mortgage rates are going down, we can't then secure new loan rates with the same lender as well. So if it's 4.6 and the lenders suddenly drop the rates to 4.4, as long as you haven't completed, I can call the lender and say, look, so-and-so wants to, with this application, wants to reduce the rate to the new one you're offering right now, 4.4, and the lender will happily oblige as well. So it can go, you can still bring it down, but until you've submitted the application, it will be secure. Right, so the important question, how much can I actually borrow? Well, so to find this out, there's a lot of information that we need to go behind the scenes to analyze and understand how lenders actually assess the affordability. So the lending is based on income multiples. The standard base is 4.5 times your overall combined income. So if there's 2 applicants and your combined household income is £50,000, it will be 4.5 times that as your base as well. Now, the other thing that lenders have to make sure is that you can meet your monthly payment obligation as well. So what the lenders will do is they will look at everything that's presented to them and say, even if you get 4.5 times your income, do your expenses also allow you with the monthly payments that you're also going to be committed to, plus all the fees that you have to pay, plus all the living costs that you're going to incur once you've got the mortgage in place. So things like your council tax, your utilities, and the other basic living expenses that you will have as well. And that's what we classify as free disposable income. So you're essentially looking at your income minus your expenses, and the lenders will base that and take that into account as well. So there are 4 types of income that usually lenders will accept. That's in your employed income, your self-employed income. If you're a director of a limited company, we will accept that income as well. And there are other income sources as well, which we'll go through just now as well. So if we start with employed, in your payslip you'll see you'll see a few different types of income depending on your contract and depending on what job you do as well. So your essential is your base salary, right? So that's your monthly take-home pay, gross, that you will take every month before taxes as well. Then you've got bonuses. If you do get a discretionary bonus, performance-based bonus, whether that's monthly, whether that's quarterly, whether that's annually, they can also take that into account as well. And again, they want to see that done over the years as well. So ideally, you want to have that for at least the last 2 years. So then they will take an average of that as well. Any allowances you get, so if you get a car allowance, location living allowance, anything like that, they can also consider that and take that as part of the income multiple. Overtime, again, if you're doing overtime and if it's guaranteed, then that's even better because that means that you're definitely going to get that income. If it's regular and it's fluctuating, they will take an average of the last 12 months as well. And again, same with commissions. If you're working in a commission-based role where it's a sales commission-based, they will again take an average of the last 12 months and look at that factor. So the question I always get asked is, what if I've started with working for this company, it's been 6 months, I haven't got 12 months to show? We'll still take the average of whatever you've done in the 6 months, but it will be calculated over a 12-month basis as well. So it will be lower, but it will still be calculated as part of the assessment of affordability. So what about self-employed and directors? So this is a funny space because a lot of self-employed and directors consider themselves to be employed because essentially they think they're employed by a company. That necessarily isn't the case. If you are a director of a limited company and you own more than 20% of that company, then you are not considered as employed. You're considered as self-employed. If you own less than 20% ownership, then you're still considered as employed, and we can take your pay slips into account. So what happens if you own more than 20% of the company and you have self-assessments? So what happens in that state? The lenders want to see an average of your last 2 years self-assessments. So that's your tax calculation, SA 302, as well as your tax year overview as well. So for any accountants in the room, they will know that, and they will be able to provide that for you as well. And what we do is we take those last 2 years figures and we average them over the time. Now, if the income is going up from year 1 to year 2, so from the previous year to the current year, then it's an average. But if your income in the latest year is lower than the one in the year preceding year, then you will take the lowest, so it will be the latest year. And that is what we'll base the affordability on as well. Now, there are some lenders who do allow 1 year's worth of self-employment income, as long as there's an accountant reference alongside it, and the accountant can show that you are still earning and your company still be profitable in the following subsequent years. So they will need an accountant to reference that as well. And it needs to be an accountant with a UK recognized qualification. So the other thing that's interesting with self-employment is that you get paid, you take salary, you take dividends as well, and you make it as cost and tax efficient as possible, right, to minimize your tax paying. But what you don't realize is that there are actually two different ways a lender can calculate your affordability. So there's your basic income and dividends, or your basic income and your net profit in the limited company. When I say net profit, it means profit after all your expenses have been accounted for, but pre-tax as well. So if you're the type of person who says, I don't need more than X amount to survive, and it's just my basic income, take a salary, the retained profits in the company can also be used as part of the affordability assessment. Because at the end of the day, that income is yours, right? You can either choose to leave in the company, or you can take it out as dividends. So you can't do both, you can do one or the other. So it's either base salary and dividends, or base salary and net profit. If you take lots of dividend out, it makes sense to do it that way. More lenders allow that. If you prefer not to take your dividend out and leave in the company, then you can also do it that way as well, and the lenders will consider that as part of their affordability. What about the other income sources? So in this day and age, many of us may have second jobs, we may have income already coming from rental properties, we may be investing in the market, getting dividends, we may have trusts, we may have allowances, we may be getting universal credit and tax credit and benefits. All those are income sources that many lenders can accept. You have 50 plus lenders in the market, as I said earlier, and all of them have different criteria, and all of them have different risk appetite as well. A lot of them can take 100% of their income, some may decide to take 60% of their income, some may even decide to take 50% of their income. But that allows us to then work off what income you have allows me to work off and say, okay, so-and-so lender is best for your situation because you've got this type of income, and this lender accepts it, and they're willing to give you the amount of money that you require as well. So that hard work, rather than you having to do, I do. Okay, we talked about expenses, right? And the fact that the free disposable income is calculated based on income expenses. So what does expenses really mean as well? So there are three types of expenses that the lender looks at. Committed expenses, essential expenses, and your basic quality of life. At the end of the day, the lender can't leave you in a position where you can't even afford the basic necessities after you've got the property. They have a duty of care to you under the regulations that they have to live by. So committed expenses are anything that, again, we mentioned earlier, you find in your credit report. So these are credit cards, loans, overdrafts, car finance, any agreements, even student loans as well. So if you're paying a student loan from your pay slip or as part of your self-assessments, we have to consider that into the calculations as well. Essential expenses is, like I mentioned, your council tax, your utilities, your groceries, your transport, your insurance, and your healthcare as well. So they also have to be factored in as part of the assessment as well. And then your basic quality of living is, what do you do as an individual? What's your lifestyle like? Are you somebody that goes to the gym and have a gym membership? Do you have children and need childcare support for them and you pay for that childcare? Any personal expenses or personal expenditures and essentials that you need to cover as well. All of these factors will get taken into account as part of expenses, and your free disposable income is calculated on the back of that as well. So lenders will look at all three different aspects to understand what your free disposable income looks like. So now we've looked at affordability and what lenders will need and how they assess the affordability. It's important for you to understand what the interest rates are, how they work, and what mortgage products look like and how they're structured. So mortgage products are essentially structured into three different types. You've got a repayment type, you've got a term, and you've got the interest rate option that you can go for as well. So if we start with repayment type, essentially there are two types of repayments you can make to a lender. You can do capital repayments, which is where the loan, the monthly repayment that you make is split into two parts. The first part is the capital, you going back and paying off bit by bit the amount that you've actually borrowed. And the second part is the interest that you need to pay to the lender for agreeing to allow you to borrow that money as well. The idea with capital repayment is that at the end of the term, you're left with a zero balance. So you would have paid off the entire capital and the loan that you've taken out initially in full, which basically means you have that property mortgage free and it's yours at the end of it. The second option is interest payments. Now, a lot of lenders, especially for first-time buyers, do not like giving interest on mortgage to first-time buyers. And the reason behind that is that you are inexperienced. You're new to the market, you don't understand the mortgage game yet, and you've not had experience building yourself up as well. So it's very difficult to get an interest-only payment mortgage as a first-time buyer, especially if you've got a really low deposit as well. But essentially, this is made up, the payment is only interest-only. So it's going to be lower than the capital repayment, monthly payment you make, because you're only paying the interest, but the capital stays the same. So if you borrow 200,000, that 200,000 doesn't go down. It stays exactly the same throughout the term of the mortgage. You can, as voluntary, make overpayments if you wanted to. That's fine, that's your personal preference, and there is criteria around that, and you can, so you can lower yourself. But essentially, you have to then owe the lender that amount at the end of the term. So you have to make sure you have a suitable repayment vehicle to pay them back to the lender at the end of the term. Okay, so what is term, right? Term, as people, we generally dislike having debts, right? We want to be debt-free as soon as possible as well. And a mortgage needs to be arranged on the shortest affordable term for yourselves. So when you come to me and say, Ali, I need a budget, my budget is £1,500 a month, I'm making sure that the term is as low as possible to meet that budget requirement of £1,500 a month. And that's what we look at. So maximum terms you can go up to, depending on age, is 40 years. And they take the time and age into account as well. So 40 years is the maximum, can be shorter depending on the time and age, but then again can be shorter if your budget is high and the monthly payments are lower, so we can reduce the term as well. Essentially, we're looking at four factors when we're looking at term. What your retirement age is, your ability to pay in later life. So if you say your retirement age is 60, then we need to consider between 60 plus, how can you repay that mortgage if you want to take out a term that's going to take your age over 60 as well. We're looking at budget and disposable income as we talked about, and we're looking at whether you also want to make voluntary additional overpayments, even though it's capital repayment as well. So if your monthly payment is £1,500, but you say to me, I can afford an extra £200, but I don't want to commit to the extra £200 a month, then we can look at that and find a lender who will allow that as well. Okay, interest rate. So there's so many interest rates. We all know the basic fixed cost and the fixed rate. That means that for the initial term, whether that's 2-year, 3-year, 5-year, that rate that's selected is fixed at that rate. Doesn't matter what happens in the market, doesn't matter if rates will skyrocket or they fall, that is the rate you pay in the initial term. It doesn't change. The second options are variable rate. Now there's different flavors of variable rate as well. So you've got the standard variable rate, which can go up and down as well based on the lender's rates. You've got a discount rate, which is essentially the lender's variable rate minus the discount they're providing you as part of that initial term. And you've got a tracker rate, which basically tracks the Bank of England up and down. So recently, obviously, the Bank of England reduced the rates to 4.75. There'll be 4.75 plus whatever add-on the lender adds in. And if that goes up and down, the rates go up and down as well. But there's two others as well that the lenders offer. They offer something called a capped rate and an offset rate. So a capped rate is essentially saying, here's a range, 2% to 5%. Me, lender, depending on how the market is, I will move that rate up and down, but it will not go past that ceiling or floor. So it will be within that parameters. So we can see, okay, between 2% and 5%, what the monthly mortgage payments will be. And if that's something you're interested in, that works as well. Offset rate is a double flavor. It's basically saying, I have got X amount of my money in savings. I'm not going to touch it. Right? I'm taking a £200,000 loan. Let's say I've got 50,000 in savings. The offset says, I will minus that, the lender will then join the two together and have a relationship between the two. Basically say, I've got £200,000 that I've paid you. You've already got £50,000 in that savings account that you could pay off any time. So I will minus that and then charge you interest on the remaining amount. So the remaining 150k will get charged. And that's what they call an offset rate. That money, depending on lender again, can be locked up for that period, so you can't touch it. Or you can draw down and go back into it as well, depending on your circumstances and if you need to take your money. The final rate, the one at the top, standard variable rate, that is, every lender has a rate that they consider their mortgage rate. So when you finish your initial term, you will always end up on the standard variable rate. And that is always going to be considerably higher than whatever other rates you've got. So in that initial term, 2, 3, 5 years, you will be on one of the other 6 rates. At the end of that term, you will automatically move on to the standard variable rates if you don't take any action. So if you were to remortgage the property and move on to another fixed rate, another variable rate, another tracker rate, you don't pay that. But if you just did nothing and you left it as it is, you'll be paying your standard variable rates. Okay, so for first-time buyers, how do lenders help? So Michelle talked about what government schemes are. I'm more focusing on what lenders can do for you as well. So if you're a professional or a key worker, then you qualify for what is termed in the industry as professional key worker products as well. Not all lenders do this. There are some lenders who do this, but they offer these type of rates and they offer these type of income multiples specifically for professionals or for key workers. Many specialist lenders in the market will actually go 6 times your income. So if you're looking for something a little bit higher in terms of borrowing, then as a key worker or as a professional, you can get up to 6 times your income. You must meet the lender's criteria, so they have more stricter criteria in terms of income, in terms of affordability, in terms of your credit rating, and property as well. So they'll have of the four P's that we talked about earlier. But only one applicant needs to qualify from those 2 criteria for you all to get the benefit. So if I'm an accountant, my wife is just somebody who's employed working in the industry. You know, she's not a professional, she's not a key worker. You both will qualify for 6 times the income because of you being a professional or key worker as well. So if your household income together is 50,000, times 6, up to 300,000 pounds as well. You can be employed and you can be self-employed, so there's no restriction there. So we'll always go back, and as we talked about earlier, we'll look at your salary if you're employed, or we'll look at your self-assessment if you're self-employed as well. But you must be registered with a recognised body or council. So for example, if you're a doctor or a dentist, you need to be recognised by your governing bodies as well. So who qualifies? The list isn't exhaustive, but it is an initial view to give you an idea of who can qualify. So accountants, lawyers, doctors, dentists, pharmacists, opticians, NHS, care workers, police, firefighters, paramedics, teachers and social workers as well, all qualify. Now these specialist lenders offering this service and offering this additional range does come at a cost, so they usually generally tend to be higher rates than the stuff on the market as well. So we look at both. When we're looking at income, if it does work, great. If it means that you can get something higher, fantastic. As long as you're happy to pay the monthly payments, that's fine. If not, then we'll go back onto the normal industry ranges as well. The second type is employed applicants. So there were two mainstream lenders that for employed applicants only will go, for first-time buyers, will go 5.5 or even 6 times your income as well. So if I'm employed, I've got employment contracts, everything's there, I've got my pay slips, etc., they can consider me 6 times the income as well. Again, must meet the criteria for income, credit, etc. as well. But in this situation, all applicants need to be employed. You cannot have anybody who's self-employed as well to meet this criteria. Okay? This again is for first-time buyers, and the minimum deposit you actually need for this is 5% as well. Now, 100% mortgages. So, there's only one lender in the market who came up with an innovative product for 100% mortgages as well. And their base for this will say, if I'm a renter and I can pay my rent on time every month, then I should be deemed safe enough to get a mortgage as well and get on the property ladder as well. So that was their incentive behind it as well. Now they have a lot more criteria, but some of it I've put up for you on the screen as well. You must be renting for a minimum of 12 months before being able to apply. Your income multiple will be dependent between 4.5 to 4.75 times your income as well. Can be employed, can be self-employed, not a problem there as well. But the lender has 2 criteria. We've talked about affordability and how much you can go, 4.5 times income, etc. But the second criteria this lender has is whatever your rental monthly payment is you're making, it can only go up to 120% of that. So if it's £1,000, your monthly mortgage payments cannot go beyond £1,200. So based on the interest, etc., that could lower your affordability as well. So you have to weigh it up against the benefits and the risks as well. With 100% mortgages as well, the key thing to remember is obviously you're not putting any deposit down, but you are susceptible more to market factors. So if the valuation of the property goes down, you could find yourself in a position where your mortgage payments higher than the property could actually be in the future as well. So you have to weigh up the risks as well as the benefits of that. Okay, finally, Mushagan spoke about earlier as well, stamp duty is changing. And the only thing I'd add to what Mushagan said is that you must exchange and complete before the 31st March deadline to be able to get that first time buyer relief for stamp duty as well. If you don't, then you will automatically have to pay the new rates from the 1st of April as well. So bear this in mind. We just started the 1st of December, so we've got 4 months to do this if you really want to do this pretty quickly. Last but not least, we've talked about mortgages, but just want to quickly touch upon protection as well. So as we said, your mortgage is going to be the single biggest commitment and debt you're going to take on as an individual as well. And it's true for many people in this room. So a lot of the time people get so excited that they want to go for the mortgage and they're happy because they're going to get up on the property level, they want to buy a house, fantastic, great. But what happens to that mortgage when life happens, right? There's a statistic out there that we're all now living longer. So more people will get ill in their lifetime and have critical illness, an injury, an accident, than actually pass away before their 70th birthday as well. But it's still really important to have the protection in place so that when something happens, your loved ones still have a roof over your head without the financial stress of still having to pay the mortgage as well. Critical illness, so when you have a really major illness, heart attack, cancer, stroke, diabetes, not diabetes, stroke, blindness, etc. The lender can get out of those circumstances because you can't do your job as you were doing before. Income protection, similar, instead of a lump sum, it's a monthly benefit, and then private medical insurance is there. Obviously, if you need to go and see the doctor or get specialist consultants as well. So that's it from me as well. I think we're opening up to Q&A.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. So, thank you for listening. We haven't had a lot of interaction up till now, so we'll open the floor for questions and answers. So those who want to ask questions, fire away. Akbar bhai. Walaikum salam.
What is the age limit for mortgage?
So for residential mortgage, usually it's your retirement age or 70 is the age limit. However, some lenders will go up to 80 as well, depending on whether you've got a pension in place and how much that pension will actually be worth at the end of your retirement age.
So, yes, if I'm 70 and you have a limit of about 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years, but obviously they will now base it on your pension income rather than your actual working income.
Walaikum salam.
For Brother Ali, just a question about the agreement in principle, decision in principle. You said there's a time limit of 1, 2, or 3 months, and what a time limit until what stage? Is it where they exchange contracts or?
Yeah, so the time limit for that is for you to submit the full application to the lender. So when you've got the decision in principle, it will have an expiry date on it, and by then you need to have, if you found a property, submit an application. Doesn't matter if you don't find a property, you can always renew the mortgage principle again.
My question is that what we get registered with this right book of Zopla, you see, now it comes to survey, report. Then we give the other review report for the surveys. What if I buy a house and all applications are okay? So what does this right move of Zopla help me regarding the survey
Yeah.
report.
Okay, got your question, Hassan Bhai. Rightmove and Zoopla, initially you go online to have a look at the various houses available in the market for you to choose. So you choose a house or houses which is in your range and in your area. So you look at a number of houses, 10, 15, whatever, then you choose the house. It hasn't got anything to do with the survey. Surveying is different. Rightmove and Zoopla, you are going into the online agencies in the beginning before even you have given an offer. Is that clear?
Yeah, but my question is this, that whether the previous report of the survey will it not be valid for the
What do you mean previous report? Which previous
I
report?
think he's talking about the mortgage valuation.
Yeah, I think if you mean the valuation report by the lender, as I said earlier on, the lender is doing a valuation for his purpose only because he's lending, say, £100,000 to you, and he has to make sure that he gets his money back plus the interest. He's in the business to make money. So he's only doing a valuation of the property. You are the actual owner of the property. You are buying the property, so you have to make sure that it's structurally sound and there are no defects in it. And that takes a lot of time. That takes a surveyor a lot of time to look into each and every part of the property where there is dampness or not, whether it needs some work, whether there is no structural defects, so on and so forth. So for your own peace of mind, it is important to get the surveyor's report.
Can I just add to that as well? So when the valuer goes to the lender, it's not, the lender is not obliged to share the report with you. So you may not even see it as well. And the lender, what they're all looking, all the lender's valuation is looking is this property actually built? Is it habitable? Does it look okay? Does it feel okay? If I go inside, is there anything visible to the eye? They're not going to go behind in the roof or anything like that and do the full structural survey. They won't do that. They're not going to pay for that. All they're looking is it suitable? Is it good for me as a lender? That's it. For you as a structural surveyor or the home buyer report, the surveyor will actually go through every single aspect of the property. They will look at the windows, they will look at the door, they will look outside, they will look at the roof tiles, they will go down below, they will go everywhere, they will look at the electrics, the gas connection, everything. The lenders won't do that.
Yes, Ahmed Bhai.
It's an unusual question.
Sorry, Muslim Bhai wanted to ask a question after. Yeah, go on.
It's a bit unusual question, but a person is a resident of UK or a citizen of UK, but his income is coming from another country. Would he be eligible to get a mortgage? Should I repeat the question?
Yes, please, sir.
Yeah.
A person is a resident or a citizen of UK, but his income is coming from another country. Will he be eligible for mortgage?
So lenders will only accept income from certain countries outside of the UK. Usually there should be countries that will probably be the Western countries and maybe one or two countries in the Middle East. What the lenders will do is they will take a haircut from that income. So let's say the income is 50,000 a year, let's say in a local currency. They will reduce 20% of that and then look at the exchange rates as well. So what they're trying to do is hedge against exchange rates changing up and down and that impacting your conversion to UK pound because they will always want the money in pounds. So you have to convert it and then pay them in pounds as well. So yes, it is allowed by certain lenders, very, very small handful, but they will always reduce the actual total income.
So there are limited countries where they will allow anything in Africa or in
No, nothing in Africa. You're looking
in Far East or anything like that.
So Hong Kong is one that's okay. You're looking at the Western countries, so anything in Europe, within the EU, America, Canada, and in the Middle East, you're probably looking at United Arab Emirates. One or two lenders also don't mind. They don't mind. I think it's either Oman or Qatar, one of the two. but no, nothing in Africa.
Dr. Hadi? Okay, Muslim uncle wants to ask after that.
I just want to find out about endowment mortgage. There used to be endowment mortgage years ago. Is it still going on? Because for a 5-year period, you just buy endowment at the end of the term, it pays off your mortgage.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Yeah, endowment mortgages are gone, I think, in the past.
Okay, Dr. Hadi? Use the mic.
Thank you very much for these two excellent presentations. My question, you mentioned hedge. To be honest, I didn't understand it. I apologize for that. Can you please explain it in more details? Or what is hedge?
Okay, in terms of the question I asked.
Yes.
Okay, so what the lenders basically do is they're protecting the risk that is going to happen. So what they're looking to do when they hedge is they're saying, okay, markets fluctuate, currencies fluctuate, so the pound versus the dollar or the pound versus the euro can go up and down daily based on what's happening in the market. So to hedge from that sudden spikes or drops in that currency exchange, they basically take 20% off whatever the current rate is on the market. That's called the hedge. So they're basically protecting from that market inflation or valuation, devaluation of that currency from when there's foreign exchange involved in the income as well. That's what they're doing.
So there is a Musa bhai?
Thank you, both of you, for the excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Quick one to any one of you. If you can throw a bit more light on maybe the main difference between the freehold and leasehold, especially for first-time buyers. Is it something you will be discouraged about going for leasehold and just go for freehold? In that sense, basically. Thank you.
Freehold basically is once you bought the house, the land belongs to you, and really you don't have to do much, and it can pass after your death, and your children can inherit it, so on and so forth. Leasehold, there is a lease on the flat, and generally if a big tall building has 100 flats, they can't give freehold for all the flats, because they are all over the place within that particular building. So the actual freehold belongs to somebody else, and what the lender looks at is that the lease is reasonably long enough, like 100 years plus, before they land on it. But nowadays, I think the government is making it possible for the lease to be extended to about 999 years, so it can be as good as a freehold. And leasehold, you have expenses of ground rent, whereby the management company of that particular property looks after the communal places like gardens and lighting and heating in the communal area. So they charge you a management fee for that, service, which is called service charge, and the ground rent. Would you like to add anything?
Yeah, so as Rashad said, so with leasehold, you have a lease against the units of the property within the multi-unit flat block. And from a lender's perspective, they're looking for the longer the lease, the better. So what they calculate is how long is the lease at the moment, and how long is going to be remaining on the lease once the mortgage ends. And essentially, the longer the lease, the better. You can get 999 years of leases, but 100%, over 100 years is definitely much preferred as well, by lenders as well. Essentially, what happens with the lease is once it gets really low, you have to renew the lease. To renew the lease, you don't have to pay to the freeholder again to renew and extend the lease. So you're going to have to think about it. If the lease is low, then do I have the money to renew the lease when it comes towards maybe, let's say there's 30 years or 40 years or 50 years remaining in the lease as well. To extend that, that's going to cost you essentially. If you buy a property, you can't start a negotiation for leases after you've been in the property for 2 years. So you have to wait 2 years before you can start the negotiation as well. Unless the person who is selling the property to you starts the negotiation, you can continue if they started already.
There is a question on equity release by somebody here. So we will answer it when we come to the second part of the talk, where I'll be talking on the equity release. The other question here we have is, do you have a recommendation of mortgage advisor locally? Well, we'll have to have a look at it after the talk. Yeah.
So the first question is, which lenders offer up to 6 times incomes for professional workers? So there's about, I'd say about 8 to 10 lenders out at the moment that do that. They have a professional range. Usually it's more of the specialist lenders, not the high street banks that do this as well. And again, it all depends on your circumstances. So I can't tell you a lender, but it's more a case of, when you look for your circumstances and if that's something you're interested in, and based on how much you want to borrow, then we can certainly look at those lenders and see how much they would be willing to let you borrow and what the interest rates on those would be as well. The next one is 100% mortgage. Is there a minimum of rents that you have to pay for 12 months before you can qualify? The answer is no. There's no minimum rents, but as I said, the higher the rents, the more likely you will get a bigger loan as well, because they will take a ceiling of 120% of the rent that you pay today. A good example here is that, let's say you're paying £1,000 a month, and then let's say 2 months ago your rent was increased to £1,200, and now you're paying £1,200, you're paying for the last 2 months, then you still take £1,200 as a base rent as well. So then they'll calculate it. That's just whatever you've paid in the recent 2 months is what they're looking at. How common is it? Which lenders do you know that offer 100%? As I said, only one lender in the market. This was an innovative product by this lender that's offering 100% mortgages. And no other lenders do it, just one.
Zain, you have a question? Go on.
I got just a couple of questions. Firstly, thank you for your time. What are the mortgage requirements for people who are basically, let's say, on a limited leave to remain? And the other question being second jobs. What are the criteria for that? Let's say if a person works a good amount of hours for the second job, will it flag in the when they do the searches or not? And last question is, let's say if a property is sold on Zoopla or anything like that, subject to terms and conditions, can we jump in and give an offer from our side to the, let's say, whoever's managing the property or not?
So if we go with the first question, the visa. So yes, lenders don't have a problem. Most lenders don't have a problem with visa. A lot of lenders, if you're not a permanent resident or have indefinite leave to remain in the UK, you will be restricted to 75%. So you need 25% deposit. However, there's an increasing number of lenders now who are coming into the space with a little bit more relaxed criteria, and they're offering foreign national mortgages in the UK as well. So by foreign national means you're in the UK, residing in the UK, you've got a footprint in the UK, but you don't have the permanent right to reside. So yes, there are a lot more lenders coming into the space. As long as you're on, a tier 1, tier 2 visa, even if you've got a spouse visa, it doesn't make much of a difference. And again, the advantage is that those lenders are more the specialist ones because they realise there's a gap in the market. So they may charge a slightly higher rates, but they will allow you to benefit from a mortgage as well. There are 1 or 2 lenders also that don't mind if you've got one applicant is a UK national, has permanent rights to reside, and another one who doesn't, some of them, one or two lenders also allow you to go above the 75% threshold as well. But majority, I'd say about 75% of lenders still will restrict you to about 75% into value. The second question, just remind me again?
About the rules regarding second job.
So with second job, a few lenders offer second job as an allowable source of income. What they want to see is basically two things. Number one, consistency. So you've been doing both jobs in parallel together for at least a minimum of 6 months, as well as how many hours a week do you spend doing both jobs together. So if you're working flat out, let's say you're doing 60, 70 hours a week on 2 jobs, they will still restrict it down to maybe 50 hours, maybe 55 hours as well. So it's a case of, have you still got the balance and have you got consistency is what you're looking for as well. And the third question was?
Property sold, but still, let's say, subject to terms and conditions on the plan. Can we jump in and make an offer?
Sorry, I didn't hear
So
this.
if the property is still on Zoopla, saying still subject to conditions, can you still go and make an offer for that property?
Yes, you can. I think so.
So there's a rule called gazumping. There's a term called gazumping. Basically, that means is, as Mushak said earlier, it's not legally binding on you as the buyer or the seller to commit to this transaction until exchange. So before exchange, you are still at the risk of that property being gazumped by somebody else, or you can gazump somebody else if you come in with a better offer as well. You have to remember that the estate agent works for the seller, not for you, right? So their job, because they get paid in the back of it, is to sell that property for the highest possible price, the highest possible bidder. So if you come in saying, I want to buy it for X amount higher than what they've already got, they will not tell you what price it's been sold for, right? Because even if it says, 250,000 STC, it won't mean that it's sold for 250,000. It just means that was the advertised price. So if you come in, they will tell you, they won't tell you, but if you put an offer, they still have an obligation to tell that to the seller, and then the seller can make a decision. But if you go to them and say, I've got my paperwork in order, everything's in order, ready to go, they're happy to spend an extra few weeks delayed, because obviously that transaction, we don't know where it's gone, then they may say yes. If not, then obviously no. So it's, again, it's up to the seller.
Yes, Shakat bhai. Walaikum salam.
What is the difference between ordinary mortgage and non-mortgage?
Okay, so an ordinary mortgage, as we all know, riba, right? Riba is the interest payment, right? So in an ordinary mortgage, you're basically paying riba back to the lender, right? Which is the interest, which is the traditional mortgage as well. Islamic finance is also another great market in the UK as well, and they're starting to get a few lenders, maybe like 2 or 3 lenders in this space as well. So the difference between that is you're not paying riba to the lender if you're offering Islamic finance. What you're doing is you're entering into a contract whereby you are putting the down payments, which is your deposit, and then you are renting the remaining amount of the property as well. So the lender comes in together with you, He's like the landlord, you're like the tenant. You pay the down payments, he pays the remainder, and then you pay the rent back to the lender. So they have an investment in that property alongside you. That is the difference. So you're not paying interest, you're paying rent back to that lender who's offering Islamic finance.
So
At the end, yes, it will belong to you. So they will still take a charge over the property. So legally, they still have a charge over the property. So if you sell the property, you have to pay them back what you owe them, and then the rest is yours.
Muslim bhai.
Yeah, so sort of like joint ownership, exactly. So they are the, so obviously if you've got 2 applicants, then the third owner, essentially within that property.
Okay, we'll take the last question because the time is passing by, and after so I've got 1 or 2 questions here. After that, we take a short break.
We're just doing the what if you're a contractor? So I know there's some agencies, they offer 3 to 6 months as a minimum, and then they don't. So there's some agencies can offer you 12 months plus. Now if that's documented with that
In short, yes. So what lenders are looking for as contractors is, are you essentially on inside IR35 or outside IR35? They're looking at a limited contract, KMIE, or you have a limited umbrella company set up. So obviously there's so many different structures you can go through. In short, in terms of contract, they're looking at contract experience. So how long have you been contracting for, and is it in the same similar role as well? And then how long is your contract that you're currently on? So like I said, if you've got 12 months contract and it's still got a while to go, fantastic. Some lenders will want to make sure that at the point of application, you have at least 6 months remaining, and other lenders who are more contractor friendly will want you to have at least 3 months remaining. But then even those are the ones with 3 months, they want some sort of proof that your contract will be extended or renewed as well. So that even a letter from the employer saying, yes, after 3 months, you're going to get extended and it's another 6 month or 12 month contract, and you've got the experience to show you've been with them for a little while, then that gives the lender a little bit of peace of mind and less risk as well.
There is a question here on remortgage, which is good because we haven't touched on remortgage. Remortgage basically means that you have a mortgage. If you have a mortgage with a certain lender, say for example Barclays Bank, and you want to move to a different lender for various reasons, good terms, whatever, you could do it, but it all depends on your agreement, on your clause, on your mortgage conditions. You have to make sure that it doesn't stop you from remortgaging, number one. Also, another main reason is that you have to make sure that there are no redemption penalties, i.e. if you redeem your mortgage within say a year, 2 years, 3 years, the lender, i.e. the current lender, might impose redemption penalties. So you'll have to pay those redemption penalties if you transfer to a different lender. Correct? So, and then you have a few questions here you want to answer.
I've got two here. So the first one is, if I have a 10% deposit saved, but for 5% mortgage deal, because I want to save the other 5% as a rainy day fund, can I? So yes, in short you can. It's up to you how much you put forward as a deposit. As long as you can actually borrow the extra 5% from the lender and they allow you to borrow that, so affordability allows it, then yes you can. Obviously the interest rate will be different on that as well. The second question I've got is, if I receive a property as a gift, do I have to pay stamp duty? And would I lose my first time buyer privileges if I receive a property as a gift? So let me reverse that. You do use your first time buyer privileges if you receive a property as a gift. If there's a property in your name, then you're not a first time buyer, so you use that privilege. In terms of stamp duty, there's a lot of legal things, complications involved in that as well. You're looking at inheritance tax. There's going to be a lot of other things involved as well. It depends on the scenario. Okay, so if the person giving you the gift is alive, are they going to be living in the property still? Technically, that's not a gift because they're still benefiting from the property. So they need to vacate that property. They can't live there. Unless they're going to pay you rent and market value, then there's a different consideration as well. So there's a lot of other things to consider in terms of gifting property, and it's better to speak to a tax advisor or a conveyancer solicitor who would understand more stamp duty rules and regulations around gifting property as well.
I think you have already answered this. If somebody is working abroad, haven't you?
Yes.
Yeah, so this has been answered. There's a question on inheritance tax, which is a specialist field. We'll try and answer that after the break in the second segment. So now we take a break for about 10-12 minutes and come back for investment properties, inshallah. Thank you very much.